Your knife is crushing that tomato instead of cutting it, your sauce is sticking in ways it shouldn't, and somewhere in Japan there's a tool designed specifically for that exact problem. One most Western kitchens have never heard of. Japanese kitchen design has spent decades quietly solving the frustrations you assumed were just part of cooking. Start with the cutting board, because that's where it all begins. And the first thing Japanese kitchen design asks you to question is the knife in your hand. Pick up a standard Western chef's knife and try to slice a cucumber into thin, even rounds. What you're actually doing is rocking the blade forward in a curved arc, which means the edge rolls across the vegetable rather than dropping straight through it. For firm produce, that's fine. For anything soft, ripe tomatoes, fresh herbs, cabbage, that rocking motion compresses before it cuts. You get crushed edges, bruised cells, and juice bleeding out before the food even hits the pan. The nakiri, Japanese for vegetable cutter, solves this with a single design decision. The blade is flat, completely flat. No curve, no belly, no rocking motion required. The tall rectangular profile, almost like a small cleaver, lets you push straight down through the ingredient in one clean stroke. Cucumber slices come out with sealed edges. Cabbage shreds stay crisp rather than wilting from the pressure. Japanese cooks have treated vegetables as worthy of their own dedicated blade for centuries, and once you use a nakiri, that logic becomes impossible to argue with. Now take that same cucumber and try to shave it paper thin by hand. Even with a sharp knife, you'll get maybe 3 consistent slices before thickness starts drifting. That inconsistency isn't just aesthetic. A slice twice as thick needs meaningfully longer to pickle, to wilt, to cook through. That's the problem the Benriner mandolin was built for. Compact enough to store in a drawer with an adjustable blade that dials in thickness to the millimeter, it produces slice after identical slice without the fatigue or drift of hand cutting. French mandolins solve the same problem but arrive oversized and expensive. The Benriner strips it back to the essential mechanism: precision thickness, nothing extra. Then there's the suribachi, the Japanese mortar and pestle, and the difference between it and a smooth-walled Western mortar is immediately obvious the first time sesame paste refuses to come together. A smooth bowl just pushes ingredients around. The suribachi's ridged interior grips and shears, breaking cell walls instead of rolling over them, pulling sesame seeds into a genuinely smooth paste in minutes. 3 tools, 3 distinct problems solved. Each one reflects the same instinct: respect the ingredient enough to give it exactly the right tool. Of those 3 tools, the nakiri, the Benriner, or the suribachi, which one are you most likely to actually try first? Drop your answer in the comments below. Now let's get into the tools that change what happens once the ingredients hit heat. But prep is only half the story, and the tools you just saw work on cold ingredients. What changes when you apply heat is where Japanese kitchen design gets genuinely surprising. Picture a braise going wrong in 2 directions at once. On the outside edge of the pot, the liquid is evaporating too fast, leaving a concentrated, slightly scorched ring. In the center, the ingredients are barely touched. The liquid circulates unevenly, so some pieces are swimming while others are exposed. You're stirring constantly, adjusting the flame, and the result is still uneven. This is the problem the Autoshibuta solves, and it solves it with something almost absurdly simple: a lid that sits not on top of the pot, but directly on the surface of the liquid itself. The Otoshibuta, a drop lid, typically wooden or silicone, sits directly on top of the simmering liquid and ingredients, slightly smaller than the pot's diameter. Because the lid presses gently on the surface, it holds ingredients in place and forces the simmering liquid to circulate evenly around everything in the pot. Heat distributes across the whole surface without stirring. Nothing scorches at the edge because the circulation is slow and consistent. The heat distributes evenly across the whole surface. Nothing scorches at the edge because the circulation is slow and consistent. Japanese home cooks don't think of this as a technique. Every kitchen simply has one, the way a Western kitchen has a colander. It's the default tool for simmered dishes because it produces results that a standard lid, sitting up on the pot rim, physically cannot. Now move to the stovetop and try to make a tamagoyaki. The rolled omelet you've probably seen sliced over sushi rice. In a round pan, you pour the egg, wait for it to set, and then try to fold it into a tight cylinder. It immediately escapes to the curved edges, thins out unevenly, and collapses into something closer to scrambled eggs with ambition. The problem isn't technique, it's geometry. The tamagoyaki pan is rectangular. That shape sounds trivial until you understand what it actually enables. You pour a thin layer of egg, let it just set, then roll it forward to one end of the pan. Pour another thin layer into the empty space, let it set underneath the first roll, then roll the whole thing back again. Each layer bonds to the last. You're building the omelet in strata, dense, custardy, structurally layered in a way that holds its shape when sliced. The rectangular walls give you a straight edge to roll against, so every layer stays tight and even. That result, that specific texture, is not achievable in a round pan. The pan's shape is the recipe. Then there's the oroshigane, the Japanese fine-toothed grater, and the moment you use one on fresh ginger, you understand immediately why a box grater was always the wrong tool. A box grater shreds. It tears ginger into stringy, fibrous pieces that sit in a sauce rather than dissolving into it. The oroshigane's ultra-fine teeth don't shred. They rupture the cell walls, releasing the juice and breaking the fiber down into a smooth, almost fluid paste. That paste disperses through a dressing or dipping sauce completely differently. You taste ginger in every molecule of the dish rather than biting into a stray thread of it. And that's the through line connecting every tool in this video. The nakiri, the suribachi, the otoshibuta, the tamagoyaki pan, the oroshigane, none of them exist because someone wanted a more interesting kitchen. They exist because a designer looked at a specific ingredient, asked what it actually needs to become its best version, and worked backward from that answer. That question, what does this ingredient need, is the philosophy. The tools are just what happens when you take it seriously enough to act on it. Subscribe for more kitchen knowledge that actually changes how you cook, and watch this one next.